What's up, everybody? It's your girl Val right here on cybersecureyou on OneStream.tv. Sorry for the delay getting started. We had some technical difficulties, but do I have a show for you today? I'm so excited. Let me welcome my co-host too. Cheers. Today I have my guest, Dr. Robert Epstein, joining me. I've known this man for a very long time. I actually interned for him when I was doing my undergrad while he was editor-in-chief of Psychology Today magazine and the Psychology Today radio show. And believe me, it was interesting. He's an interesting person. Nevertheless, he's a great person. But before I bring Dr. Epstein on, and I will say this, though. He is the senior research psychologist for the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology, right? Fancy. So he's going to come on and talk to us about damn near everything I've already talked to you guys about, if not more, which is our privacy, okay? And you know, I've expressed how serious of an issue this is and how we need to stay woke and be aware and take action. So this is what Dr. Epstein is going to be speaking to us about today. Next, I always start off with something going on in the news, and I found an interesting story. Here we go with our cyber news, and this actually took place last year in September. But I found it, and because it happened in my hometown, I thought I will share it with you guys. So a former Marine, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for cyber stalking young women in a sextortion campaign while on active duty in the military. Now, I grew up right by Camp Pendleton, and I even went to Cal State San Marcos. I mean, in that whole Southern California area, you have these really connected cities, but they're separate cities. Nevertheless, Camp Pendleton is very well known, and you get Marines from everywhere. Not to say that they're all bad, but there are some bad apples. And so this particular gentleman, his name is Michael Frito. He goes by Michael Frito, but his real name is Joha Miguel. So I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But nevertheless, 26-year-old. He actually is from Torrance, California, and he was in Oceanside, and he would take photos of these females and post them on pornography websites. He would distribute them to their family and their friends. He would put it on Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter, and he would harass these young women. And so thank God he was caught. You know, how embarrassing. Like, all because you have an attitude, you're feeling some kind of way, you decide you're going to extort these women and basically blast their private situation, so to speak, all over the internet. And here's the thing. With the advent of the internet and Instagram and all these other social media websites, it really is more permanent, right? So back in the day, you know, if you kind of show somebody, hey, look, this is so-and-so, and here she is naked, and I'm feeling some kind of way about her, I don't like her, she pissed me off. That's one thing versus the way it's done now and has been done for a while, actually, and posting it on the internet where it stays there forever. Sometimes you can't even get it off. So I feel really bad for these women. I'm glad he got some prison time for it, and I'm glad he got caught in the first place. But the bottom line is, though, 5 years, is that enough? Because I personally don't think so. Because we're talking about something that will last forever versus his little 5 years, and then he gets out and goes and does it again. Not cool. Not cool at all. So, on him. We're not feeling him at all. Next, so I just wanted to kind of put that out there because that is something we have discussed on CyberSecureyou, which is the cyber stalking, cyber bullying, and here we have now sextortion. Did you show a picture of him? The guy? Yeah, there he is right there. Michael Frito. Yeah, nice looking guy too. Unfortunate. All right, so moving on. So you guys know part of the reason why I do the show in the first place is because I was severely stalked. They got into all of my accounts. They're still in my accounts. I'm on someone else's server. I mean, my situation is definitely to the extreme. But I always thought, when I have the opportunity, I'm always going to shed light on my situation so it doesn't happen to anyone else. And so that other women can be careful for this guy right here, Brian Nicholas Peterson, because he is the guy that got into all of my information and hacked my stuff and redirected my calls to his phone and changed my two-factor authentication to his phone number. And so when I get a chance, I put him out there, because I don't even think this is his real name. Because again, on his driver's license, you'll see the date of birth, 8/26/1989. This is the picture I have of his driver's license. This is his date of birth, 1989. But when you go to the next slide, the police report that I filed, his date of birth is, are you able to move it over a bit? 8/22, let's see if I can, it's over here. No, right there. 8/22/1980. So 1980 on the police report, and it's 8/22. So August 22nd on the police report, and on the driver's license I have, it says 8/26/1989. And when I tell you he cyberstalked the shit out of me, he cyberstalked the shit out of me. So I always try to put him out there, especially being that I have Dr. Epstein on today, because you never know who will be watching. So now, let me bring on Dr. Robert Epstein, and he will really give us some information. We're going to go into some detail about Google and our privacy and some of the situations and issues that Dr. Epstein has discovered, and what he is doing to help us out here and with monitoring software and so forth. Hi, Dr. Epstein.
Hi, Valerie.
Hey, nice to see you again.
You too.
Did you miss me?
Every day.
Aww. So tell me what's going on. Did you know that there was someone that was convicted of sextortion in, the San Diego area?
I did not, no.
Okay, that's why I do this show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell us what's...
service.
I'm sorry?
You're doing a service.
I know. Thank you. And I was very surprised when I heard Michael playing an interview with you on Joe Rogan. And so, mind you, I'm hearing the interview and I'm hearing your voice, and I tell Michael, I know that voice. I know that voice. And then when I went and looked at his screen, I was like, oh my God, that's Dr. Epstein. I got to call him. Who'd have thought that we would be basically fighting this sort of battle with the internet, and our privacy, which is so very important.
Well, I agree with you, but a lot of people these days, they don't even think in those terms anymore. They think that there's no such thing as privacy. There never was, and it doesn't really matter. All of that is not true. We used to have a lot of privacy in our communications, for example. We would write a letter, we would seal it, we'd put it into a mailbox, and no one would see that until it reached the recipient at the other end. It was completely private. And now there's just, people take it for granted that there's no privacy in anything we do, communications, or just looking up search results, or name it, anything you do online, using Google Docs to prepare a paper you're writing, a document. Mm-hmm. And people don't understand really what's happened, and they don't understand why the loss of privacy is a very serious matter.
It's an extremely serious matter, and what I think happens, which is what happened to myself, is I also didn't take it as seriously as I should have until I got hacked. It's like people wait for something to happen, like it has to happen before they take it seriously.
Well, I think I should mention right at the outset here, excuse me, an article that I published a few years ago, which I update every now and then. And it's available at the link myprivacytips.com, and it begins with a sentence, more or less: I have not received a targeted ad on my computer or mobile phone since 2014.
Yeah.
And that's me writing the article, and I explain in the article how I've protected my privacy for all of these years. And it can be done. You can use technology and protect your privacy, just most people don't know how to do it, or they just think privacy is no longer important. And the fact is, privacy is important, and I can give you some very good reasons why, besides, of course, the terrible thing that happened to you. And you can use technology in a way that greatly increases your privacy. And if you're a parent, you want to be thinking about protecting the privacy of your children as well.
I agree. Now, I'm also writing a really brief, like 10-step cybersecurity tip book. So I wrote my book first and finished that up before I went back and read yours, because I didn't want to, cross any lines with that and somehow put in what you wrote in mine and what have you. And I saw that you added using Brave as a way to get on the, utilize the internet and look up information versus using Google. Interestingly enough, I had Brave and it didn't work out so well for me because the hackers were so already deeply embedded into like my devices and my accounts that even with me installing Brave, once they saw that I had it, then they were able to go in and manipulate a few things and make it difficult for me to even use Brave. So I think. Oh,
sure. Yeah. Well, once someone has figured out your passwords and gotten into your accounts, then it's very hard to recover.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there are things that everyone can do in a proactive fashion, a preventative fashion, so that it would be hard for hackers to get at you, and so that these companies, which are not hackers, I mean they're just big companies. These companies that track us 24 hours a day, so that they can't track us, or so it's very hard for them to track us. Because right now, it's not just hackers, it's major companies like Google and Facebook and Twitter. They're collecting a massive amount of information about us 24 hours a day. And it's not just on, places that you might know about. It's not just on your Gmail, because of course Gmails are stored and analyzed and in some cases read by employees at Google. And it's not just the videos you watched on YouTube, which is owned by Google. It's not just the search results, all the websites that you were reading about and searching for on the Google search engine. It's not just those things. Google alone is actually surveilling us in more than 200 different ways, the vast majority of which people are completely unaware of. So, there are the things we're doing that we are pretty sure maybe are giving away our private information. And then beyond that, there's a lot of ways in which we're being surveilled that we just don't even know about. I can give you a couple of quick examples here.
I was going to say, yeah, what example do you have?
Sure. Well, Google bought, for example, Fitbit. So that gives Google information about physiological data for millions of people, literally 24 hours a day. Google worked with the government when COVID hit to try to track where the disease was going, and in effect, what that meant was that Google got access to the health data of tens of millions of Americans, again, without anyone giving them permission
Right.
to access their health data. Google invests a lot in DNA repositories. Google is behind the company that you've probably heard of called 23andMe. In other words, Google has been collecting our DNA information, which allows them to figure out what diseases we're susceptible to. That way they can work with other companies to sell us products even before we get the diseases. But it also means they know which dads have been cuckolded. They know situations in which a father is not genetically related to his children.
Wow.
Google at one point bought a company that makes smart thermostats, and the first thing Google did was to put cameras inside the thermostats. Cameras and microphones inside the thermostats. So, again, we're being surveilled. I'm just talking about one company, and of course there are lots of companies out there, but we are being surveilled all the time. And again, there are ways to protect privacy. So I'll mention again myprivacytips.com. That's an article I wrote explains some of the ways in which I've protected my own privacy quite effectively. And I want people to be educated about this so they don't end up in the situation that you did, Valerie, which is a terrible situation.
Oh, it's horrible. But Dr. Epstein,
sure.
Let me ask you a question really quickly. So I'm familiar with using Android devices, and because that's what I was using before I got hacked, and then I ended up going to iOS devices, which seemed to be even worse for me, okay? It seemed as if I had more control using Androids because I can select and deselect permissions and locations and stuff like that, whereas Apple and iOS devices, it's already done for you. Now, as far as what you were saying with Fitbit and Google obtaining information or DNA information to utilize that to sell products and work with manufacturers and what have you, I am wondering, aren't we giving them permission to do that? So are we giving them permission to, by taking, like we're logging onto the device, we're putting in username, ID, and we're agreeing. So even with Fitbit, for example, even with Apple, let's use Apple as an example. They have their health app, and you can put in your blood type, you can put in your height and your weight, you can put in emergency contact information, but you're giving them a lot of information already, which is enough for them to just take it one step further and get more information about you. So we're the ones that are, in some cases, allowing them to be able to be the monster that they are.
Yes, in fact, I wanted to point that out a little earlier because there is a big difference between hackers and what they do. For example, identity theft, which is illegal. I mean, that's a felony. So, if they could ever be caught, they can also be prosecuted. And then what these companies are doing. What these companies are doing not only is legal, but as you said, we are actually giving them permission to surveil us and our kids 24 hours a day. Now, sometimes we're not exactly aware that we're giving them permission. For example, if you read Google's official privacy policy, which is available online, you'll find that according to their policy, if you use a Google product, even if you don't know you're using a Google product, you are giving them permission to track you, to surveil you. And, does that really happen? Of course. For example, millions of websites around the world use a free, I'm going to put free in air quotes here, use a free Google application called Google Analytics to track the traffic coming to their websites. Well, Google Analytics is installed on millions of websites because it's quote unquote free. And what that means is that when you visit any of those websites, since Google software is installed on that website, they have a right to track everything you do on that website.
Correct.
So that's a perfect example where, there are these legal loopholes, legal mechanisms that have been created by these companies, according to which they can track us with our permission in a way that it's not illegal. And so that makes this a very serious problem. I mean, hackers are a problem, of course, but
Yes.
how many hackers are there? Well, I don't know, tens of thousands at least.
Correct.
But we're talking about big companies that are literally tracking right now more than 3.5 billion people around the world legally. And they're not just tracking a couple of things. They're tracking pretty much everything we do, whether we're online or not. Now, wait, how can they track us when we're not online? Well, let's say you have a phone, Android or an iPhone, doesn't matter. Even if you disconnect from the internet, let's say you have no service where you are, that phone is still recording what you do and what you say, and the songs you listen to on your phone, and whatever you read on your phone. It's tracking all of that. And from the moment you reconnect with the internet, all of that information is uploaded to these companies. I mean, this is easy to show, with the right device, which is called a man-in-the-middle device, and those have gotten very cheap. It's very easy to demonstrate that this is really happening. Mm-hmm. Or let's say, again, you're disconnected from the internet, but you're visiting friends and family, you're moving around. Well, your location is tracked all the time. And the moment you reconnect to the internet, all of that location data is immediately uploaded. Oh. So we're talking about literally megabytes of data every hour that are being transmitted about you. And if you've ever had the experience of talking to a friend about, I don't know, your acne or a rash you got or an itchy scalp, and then you notice you start getting ads, pretty soon, within minutes, you start getting ads for dandruff shampoos or creams. That's because your phones are listening. They never stop listening.
Seconds. It's within seconds. But I do have another question, Dr. Epstein, because I hear you saying companies, right? But these companies have employees that are programming software to be able to do what it's doing. So does this mean that not only are the companies itself at fault, but the employees that work for the companies, because they are the ones that are doing the busy work? They're the ones that are behind the scenes making the machine run. So should they not also be liable?
You've raised an excellent point. I actually wrote an article about this. It's called Google's Snoops. And that's available online. If you go to my website, drrobertepstein.com, or just drepstein.com, you can actually get to that article, Google's Snoops. And it's about the employees at Google and other companies and the power that they have to track people, no matter what the company policies may be. There are thousands of people at a company like Google or Facebook or Twitter, thousands of people who have access to all the private information about the people who use those websites. And believe me, they're just as curious as you or I are about everything and about people, and and they snoop and they look into our records, and sometimes they, in fact, this is actually true. Sometimes if they know of a party that's coming up and it's not too far away, they will crash a party that they've read about in someone's private email. If naked pictures are being shared, sometimes they will flash those naked pictures up on big screens at the companies where they work, or they'll pass them along to their own friends. So yes, it's the employees themselves sometimes are doing things that are just horrendous, that are highly, highly invasive. I can give you a spectacular example
Okay.
of this.
This simple 30-second method reverses memory.
So about 5 years ago now, a professor type like me, someone who is a researcher, figured out that the vehicles that Google uses, for Google Maps, driving up and down streets, taking pictures of our homes and our businesses,
Yeah.
that those vehicles were not just snapping pictures, they were also vacuuming up our Wi-Fi data. So they drive by your house and they actually would pick up and store all the Wi-Fi data. So that includes passwords and, again, websites you're going to and whatever activities you're doing, pornography sites, whatever it is you're doing. These vehicles, called Street View vehicles,
Yeah.
were doing that for at least 4 years in more than 30 countries. Now, when one of our federal agencies started to investigate this, Google blamed the entire operation on one Google employee. His name is Marius Milner.
Okay.
So, of course, you would think they must have fired him, right?
Yeah.
Not so. Marius Milner is still working at Google. He's a big hero there. And he's on LinkedIn and he calls himself a hacker.
Oh.
So Google blamed the entire operation on one employee. So yes, individual employees at these companies can do unbelievably weird, scary, invasive things. And they often prey upon young women, by the way, for obvious reasons. And most of these programmers, most of these hackers are male, and they often prey upon young women. And they do that using the capabilities, the power that these big companies have.
Oh my goodness. The gentleman that you mentioned, do you think he was paid off by Google? And so he still works there, right?
Yes,
but they blamed it all on him, even though it probably wasn't all him. He most likely had some assistance. So do you think he got some kind of payola? You know what I mean?
It wouldn't surprise me at all because, first of all, a lot of these people who've been with the company a long time, they have stock, which means, on paper anyway, they've all become very, very wealthy. There's another one that I was in touch with there, another employee of Google who actually kind of wrote an expose about Google, what really goes on there, and told me he was planning to leave the company shortly after this expose was published. He's never left. And I think that's because they pay him to stay there and keep quiet. He's not allowed to promote the book he wrote, which is called The Silicon Jungle. He's not allowed to promote it, so very few people have ever even heard of it.
All right.
But I recommend it highly. It's an amazing look at what that culture is like on the inside. It's a lot of geeks and hackers and people who do crazy things with our data because they think it's funny. Google has the ability, for example, to shut down websites, and they actually block access every single day to millions of websites. A couple of years ago, for 10 or 11 minutes, they blocked access to all of the websites in Japan. I have no idea why. Okay. And there was a particular day, this is true, it was reported by The Guardian, Google, the company, did not deny this. It was a particular day in 2009, March 31st, I think, when for 40 minutes, Google blocked access to the entire internet.
Okay. And they did that in only Japan, you said? Or you said the entire internet?
No, in 2009, they blocked the entire internet around the world for 40 minutes.
Oh, you know what? I think I do remember that.
Yeah, this is a strange culture, and a lot of the people in charge there, they really think of themselves as gods.
Yes.
One of the leaks from Google in 2018 was an 8-minute video called what was it called? I'm blanking on the name, but again, if you go to my website, drrobertepstein.com, you can get access to this, because I actually published a transcript of this video. But Selfish Ledger, it's called the Selfish Ledger.
Okay.
And this was a video made inside Google. Again, it leaked in 2018, which is all about the company's ability to re-engineer humanity according to company values.
Oh, wow.
I kid you not.
Okay.
This is a real video made inside that company.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we're up against hackers for sure, but we're also up against, for the first time in history, these just insanely powerful companies that have the likes of which have never existed before in human history.
Correct. And I always refer to Google as the internet gods. And I've done that way
Right.
before. You know, I used to call them that just because of the, like you said, the power that they have. On one of your interviews, by the way, I heard you mention this guy's name, Zach. I forget the last name. He
Voorhees,
apparently
Zach
used to.
Voorhees, yeah.
Zach what?
Voorhees.
Okay, so he used to work for Google, but he has
Yes.
walked away, and he has tons of information about what goes on internally about Google. And so what's he going to do with
walked out
that?
of there with 950 pages of documents and a video.
Oh, and a video.
Yes.
Okay, so what's he doing with that information?
He put it all in a box and sent it off to the Attorney General of the United States. Of course, he made copies first.
Okay.
Yes, and it's, by the way, there's some amazing stuff in there. He's the first one to ever walk away from, you know, a $250,000 job at Google and actually walk away with documents. And
No,
some
I
of
think
those
it's a great
documents
thing.
Are just unbelievable.
Okay, can you share
there's
something?
no
Like
question.
what's in there? Give us like a little bit of what he's got inside those papers.
Well, for example, in 2016, I published a big investigative article in U.S. News and World Report. It's called The New Censorship. If people are interested in censorship and privacy, they can go to thenewcensorship.com, and that'll take you right to my article,
Okay.
thenewcensorship.com. Anyway, I talked about Google's blacklist, 9 of Google's blacklists, which I knew about. I mean, Google never admitted to having them, but I knew they existed because I'm a programmer, so I simply knew they had them, and I explained how they worked and all that. That was 2016. So 2019, I'm testifying before Congress about my research on Google and other companies, and before me, under oath, a Google executive is asked by a senator, this is in Washington, D.C., at the Capitol, he's asked, does Google have blacklists? And under oath, this executive replies, no, Senator, we do not.
Okay.
A few weeks later, that's when Zach Voorhees walks out of Google with all those documents, and 3 of them were called blacklists.
Oh, wow. Not surprised.
Now, think of the arrogance of these managers and these executives that they're actually not only creating blacklists, which basically they use to suppress material that they don't like. They suppress content. They suppress organizations. They suppress candidates. They suppress products. So that's what goes on to blacklists, is all this content that they're suppressing. But they not only have the nerve to create these blacklists, but to call them, to label them blacklists.
Blacklist, yes.
Think of the incredible arrogance of those people.
Right, the gall,
I mean,
like they have no fear.
If I were making blacklists, I wouldn't label them blacklists. I'd label them something else.
Right, it wouldn't even have the word list. It wouldn't even have the word list. Now, so is Zach doing interviews? Or is he hiding? Is he hiding like Snowden?
No, he did for a while. He did a lot of interviews, and then he also published a book that came out last year, I think. So yeah, he's been very active. What he's not done is gone to work for another company like that. I wonder, of course, whether he's been blackballed, whether any company would even hire him at this point. But no, he's definitely tried to get the word out, because he was an insider for more than 8 years. So he really understood. He knew what was going on, and at some point he just couldn't take it anymore. There have been a few people now who have either walked out or been fired by these companies. Not long ago, a woman named Frances, blanking on her name, but she walked out of Facebook with documents. Again, revealing some scary things. The fact that Facebook thrives on controversy. They thrive on fake news. They thrive on any kind of scary content that goes viral, that people, will start to read and comment on by the millions. That Facebook makes money off of that stuff. They don't suppress it. They like it. That's how they make their money. Okay, controversy means traffic. Traffic means money.
And it's not that much different than a story I did not too long ago on Twitter. And when the, the chief security officer, Peter Zatko, they call him AKA Mudge.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he came out and he threw them so under the bus. But I always felt, and this is not even me directly knowing Dr. Epstein, but based on everything I dealt with, I'm like, this is just, it's too strange, and it seemed too coordinated, and it just seemed like they had more access than some just hacker remotely getting into my devices, right? Like they literally seem to get into my analytics. Like I've seen full-on conversations, which I have proof of, in my analytics of the iOS device. So if I go to general and I go to analytics and you look through and you're just supposed to basically see a string of numbers and some, functions, right? But I'm literally seeing full-on conversations, and that led me to believe okay, there's something going on internally. Like somebody internally or group, it's like they formed a criminal group inside of a organization. So you have the organization, then your organization inside the organization. And they're getting away with it because the organization's already criminal.
That these, people at these companies engage in should be considered criminal. At the moment, they're not. So that's the problem. I'm working on solutions to the problem. If people want to take a look at my work more generally, or want to help my work, want to support my work, they can go to mygoogleresearch.com. That's mygoogleresearch.com. But Valerie, I'm going to have to cut off here. And it's wonderful touching base with you again after all these years, and you're doing a great service, and I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And I do see that you have the Google triple threat. That's something that your viewers can go and look up if they want to check out some of your work, and then also help me stop big tech. So that's also information along with the 7 simple steps towards online privacy. So thank you so much, Dr. Epstein, for coming on and sharing that information with me. I am going to follow up with you just to find out more about the Zach guy. But thank you so much for joining us right here on OneStream.tv.
Absolutely. Thank you, Valerie. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Epstein. Take care. All right, you guys, you heard it here. I mean, some deep, deep information. And I mean, it's not like we didn't know this was happening. But then I think a lot of us turn a blind eye because it's like, oh, if it's not affecting me, but it is affecting you. It's just not 100% disrupting your life at this moment. It's just, oh, I see an ad, oh, no big deal. I said something, I see the ad. And nothing traumatic has happened, and you haven't been stalked, and you haven't been harassed. But low-key, it's harassment, to tell you the truth, because you should be able to say whatever you want in private and not have it appear on your device literally seconds later. It's like freaking crazy. Anyway, I'm so glad that he came on. I was really anticipating this information in this interview, and I hope that you guys got some relevant information that will help you protect your privacy. I mean, because that's why we do what we do. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm your host, Val, right here on CyberSecureyou at OneStream.tv. See you next week. Peace.